Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Everyday EDC. My name is Tyler, and today I got something special for you that I'm taking for the second time because I was not happy with my first review of this. I treated this knife unlike any other knife that I've ever reviewed, and it pissed me off when I rewatched it. I felt like such a kiss ass to this knife, and I just want to treat this knife like a normal knife to review and give you guys my version of what this is. So, without further ado, we have the Medford Praetorian Scout. Here is the Medford Praetorian Scout. Oh gosh, is this not a badass looking knife, guys? This thing is... I first opened this and I blew my load because I was like, this thing is so manly. Oh my goodness, is this manly. Choked up, it feels good. Now, I will be honest, the choked up position doesn't feel great. It's kind of like goofy in your hands, but I feel like if I'm going to use this knife and really use this knife, I'm going to be wearing gloves. So with gloves, I anticipate this goes away. When you're holding it in this position, the ergonomics are phenomenal. So to show off this knife a little bit, you have a glass breaker back here, and then hardware, tons of hardware, plus a proprietary system that's really not that proprietary. You can get that from the hardware store. G10 and thick G10 on one side. Let me see if I can show this off here. This on this side. Which side am I showing you? This side. This is all G10. There is no steel on this. It's just a thick lump of G10, and I'm assuming if I were to take this apart, I'm assuming that there would be something back here for wherever the phosphor... I'm assuming this is also on phosphor bronze. It's hard to actually find this total stats on this. Ridiculously smooth action. Ridiculously smooth. And if this isn't on phosphor bronze, I'll correct it with the bearings if I find it before I post it. Check out this flag. This took me a day to notice this. They milled... What is this? The Continental flag or the Revolutionary flag or something like that? In the scales. Looks awesome. And then they have the Medford like just milled into the scales. Awesome. This blade. You have a little bit of billboarding on there, but when you're this manly, you can do whatever the hell you want. A very, very cool fuller with some even more intricate milling inside the fuller, which is cool. You have this double, it's a double, you got your primary grind, a second primary grind, a secondary grind, and the secondary grind is hollowed out on the belly. A compound grind. There we go. And this upwards tanto portion of it, the pointed tanto portion is a flat grind. So you have your very narrow behind the edge here and your fatter for your, work that you don't want to damage your blade as much. Opening this guy. This is Sammy's knife, by the way. Thank you so much, Sammy, for lending this into the channel and trusting me with this beast of a knife because, it's just... I'm so excited. So opening this knife is satisfying in a way that I haven't expected before. I always like to do the reverse pinch grip and then roll with the thumb. With a lot of knives that really don't be flicked that easy, even some that can. But this, the frictionless that is just gorgeous. This is almost a man zen of doing this. This feels great. That's what she said. So you can also use the external stop here and roll it open with that. Now that's a lot less comfortable, but it's just another way to kind of play with the knife. Is this drop shut? Kind of. It's just because the blade's a freaking, brick, but once you get it past that point. And it feels so smooth. I think that's what the best part of it is. So you got some heavy jimping up here and some nice chamfering all around the edges. You got this area that is scalloped a little bit for the titanium liner lock on this side. That is actually not sunk. This isn't like a recessed liner lock. It's just inside here. Show you guys a better view of it. There you go. Some very interesting black standoffs. And then it's not really a backspacer. This is a window or a glass breaker down here. Now I haven't noticed an issue with the glass breaker, but I can be honest. I have not carried this knife far from my home short of one day to show it off to a couple guys. This stays on my desk because this is somebody's very expensive baby that I do not want to damage. Not that any other knife that is lent to me isn't somebody's baby, but I also feel like I can replace that with some financial means, and this one I'd rather not replace because it's that expensive. $450 brand new. So you guys are gonna be like, what the hell? This is a D2 blade. Now, I don't have the specs for you. One day I will. One day I keep talking about this chemistry lineup that I'm gonna do for you guys. I don't have the specs, but, and the shadows are driving me nuts. I'm sorry. I didn't realize the shadows were so bad today. But here, let's get that going. I lost track of what. Oh, D2. So this is a small batch D2. Small batch D2 means that they can spend more time ensuring that the chemistry of the material is correct. On top of that, they can also ensure that the heat treat is to the maximum heat treat that this can take as efficiently as possible. So you don't want to overcook it. You don't want to undercook it. Large batch stuff is going to be typically undercooked so they save their product and still are able to get it out the door, but the edge retention on it's not going to be nearly as good. So just be weary of judging D2 for $450 before you actually know exactly what you're talking about, because I did the same thing and I kind of felt stupid. So let's see here. The hardware, which we shouldn't know anyways, because you're not allowed to take this guy apart. I'm guessing is all T8 because my T8 does not fit in there, and I don't want to find out any further than that. This is Sammy's knife, and if I touch these screws and Medford for some reason thinks somebody took this apart, it voids the warranty. Here's the blade edge that Medford himself, not himself, but his company put on for $40. Sammy said that you can send this in and it gets this edge on there. And to kind of do an off the cuff little judgment here. As in Forged in Fire would say, will it cut? Hey. I mean, for a big knife like this, if you're curious if it will cut, will it cut? It will cut. So, don't be worried about the geometry or how big this blade is once we get into these specs, because it will cut. Speaking of specs, getting better at segues here, let's jump into these bad boys. I'm obsessed with this knife, guys. When I first got it in hand, I immediately wanted one, and then I just thought, I don't want people to think that I'm going to like serial chop somebody to death here. So this knife is coming in at 8.48 ounces, which is a very large knife, and you will not be happy to carry it in anything else other than jeans, and make sure you're wearing a belt. All right, the overall length from tip to tip of the glass breaker is about 9 inches. The overall blade length is coming in at 3 3/4, and the blade length itself is coming in at 3 3/4. The cool thing is that they managed to keep the blade length as long as the cutting edge, despite having a forward finger choil in there. So kudos to that. That's a pretty cool thing. Let's get you. These are the most interesting specs right here. Let's see. The overall width of this knife is coming in at 190 thousandths. That's almost a fifth of an inch. This thing's a monster. But behind the edge of this hollow grind is coming in right at 20 thousandths. I mean, stupid thin behind that hollow grind. And the Tanto, I'm trying to be very careful because I don't have the tape on here and I don't want to scratch his knife. And the Tanto is coming in at about 35 thousandths behind the edge. So it gives you two different cutting edges to worry about. Like if you want to cut through something that you're not sure, that's what this puncture is for. You puncture with the Tanto, and you don't want to damage the Tanto. That's why they put it, or damage your edge. That's why they put a thicker edge behind here. Pretty cool. I put that away. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I already did that. All right, so the overall scale thickness is coming in at 650 thousandths or 0.65 of an inch, which is much thicker than most knives. And you know what? you're a man. This feels good. And if you're not a man, maybe it still feels good. I don't know. But having this in your hand, the thicker and the more meat around this, the better, in my opinion. I think it feels fantastic. Not in your pocket, but the overall height of this monstrous, beautiful knife, coming in at almost 2.1 inches tall. To put that into perspective, your Manix 2, which is a super tall knife in the pocket, coming in at 1.74. This is more than a quarter of an inch taller than your Manix 2. Segue. All right. Gosh, I got to start doing that more. It's not entertaining for anybody else than me. I'm just feeling the flow, the ebb and flow of the review. This is great. Listen to the sound of my voice as I talk about the Manix 2 by comparison with the Paramilitary 3 in the size reference of the Medford Praetorian Scout. It's a great thing. So, as you can see, it's decimating these in size. Here is your Rep Model 1, and just for shits and giggles, your Rep Model 2, and then I'll stop bringing out small knives just because, why? Right? Obviously decimates both these in size. I don't have anything that compares with this in size. So I want to leave out the larger knives so that you guys can see a larger knife comparison. Here's your QSP Copperhead. Do I have anything else that's worth... Oh, I got a good one. But let me get it out. That's what she said. I should have prepped for this. I apologize for my inadequacies as a reviewer. Please do not castrate me. Don't neuter me. All right. No, you can stay out there. I like you. I like you. All right. Here is your Benchmade Super Freak. A very large knife by comparison of most, and it is still small. Here is your Spyderco Shaman. Once again, a very large knife by comparison of most. And by most, I'm talking relatively. Jesus Christ, things moving around in my room. I'm freaking haunted in here. Skin's crawling. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this thing's just massive. Is it going to be a pocket hog at 110%? There's no getting around it. It definitely is. Sorry. What are my overall thoughts on this? Ergonomically, this thing's a beast. Functionally, this thing's a beast. I just feel like both of those things combined make this like, if you're going to pick a knife for forever, right, and you're in the post-apocalypse, right now, this may be my post-apocalypse pick for a knife. It is just sturdy, solid. You're never going to damage it. You might hurt your edge, and you can just put it right back on. Not a big deal. This thing is awesome. Pocket friendliness, not so much. I never really talked about the clip. The clip is just meh, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure this is titanium, whatever. But post-apocalypse, you got a glass breaker. Action, not super fidgety, but super smooth and super satisfying to use. Can I recommend the Medford Praetorian Scout for $450? I don't know. I mean, this is getting into the territory of if you want this knife, then yes. It's not a knife that I'm going to say you need all these things that are in this knife. I mean, realistically, I don't think I need anything more, and I keep bringing it up, the QSP Copperhead. I don't need anything more, but I want more. I want this. I want the M4. I want the Axis lock. I don't need this, but I want it. I think it's awesome. I personally would not carry this. Now, let me explain why. As much as I want to, I don't want to have to constantly calm people down when I have to make a cut. I feel like that's what you're leading to with this thing. If you have to make a cut, I feel like you got to explain it the moment you pull it out. Especially me. I'm a manager at a steel mill or an aluminum mill, and I have to explain. Like, I pull out a knife and I'm sharpening a pencil and people look at me crazy. If I pulled this thing out to sharpen my pencil in a meeting, people would be like, what the where's my... If I pulled this thing out and they see it snap, they're like, oh, that thing looks so mean. Yeah. Just for shits and gigs, there's your launch 10 on top of the Medford Praetorian Scout. And I still would get looks on this. There's no way I can carry this guy. So, in my opinion, it is not practical for an everyday carry. But it is so practical for the wants that we have out of the knife community and out of the knives that we own. This is definitely a want. that is all I got for you guys. I hope I did the Medford Praetorian Scout justice. Thank you so much, Sammy, for lending this in. My name is Tyler. This is Everyday EDC. You guys stay sharp. Stay safe. Have a great freaking day, guys.